Guys, I have some exciting news to share because I have a new partnership for this year, and the partnership is with Cardo. So Cardo make these communication units. I'm relatively new to communication units. I've used communication units for just under 2 years now, and in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey, how I came to using communication units, why I approached Cardo for a partnership, and how you may be able to benefit from all of this. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. What's up, my biker friends? Welcome back to another video. This is just going to be a short video, not just announcing the partnership, but just kind of giving you the backstory around why I think it's so important. So I'll talk a little bit about sort of my story with communication units, which isn't a very long story, to be honest, and why I approached Cardo for a partnership and what that partnership means for, you know, those of you riding with me this year or maybe the next year after that. So let's start with a little background on communication unit. This is not going to be a detailed review of a Cardo unit. I'm just going to talk about my experience with the units, why I think they have great benefits for riders, and why it took me so long to finally get one. And I didn't buy my first one, so I'll get to that, spoiler alert. But talk a little bit about sort of the benefits that I see and why it was so important for me to, you know, look at an option to provide this for people riding with me on my guided tours this year. So let's back up a little bit. So Cardo units, I've been using Cardo units as sort of my first and only communication device, and I'm new to the game. I started using these units just under 2 years ago, and you know, if you know the channel for a little bit, you know that I have lots of gadgets with me, usually camera gadgets. I've got 2 drones, multiple cameras, so lots of equipment, sometimes a laptop, lots of stuff that needs charging, including my airbag vest. All these things need to be charged, and I didn't really want to add another gadget. That was one reason why I've never really gone into communication units. There was more than that. It was also the fact that sort of riding on the motorcycle, even if I'm riding in a group with friends, that moment when I'm riding, that was supposed to be like for me, you know, I didn't want any sort of disturbance from the outside, especially not any phone calls coming in and then, you know, having to decide, do I take the phone call, which you can on those units. It's pretty easy to do, but I didn't want that distraction. I didn't want to have to think about someone's calling and do you need to answer it or give others the impression that they could call me when I'm on my bike. So that was one reason. And then the third reason was that while I'm riding, do I really want to hear what all the other guys have to say or have all that chatter? Or I'd rather be sort of focusing on the ride. And that includes music. I've never really listened to music on the bike, which you also can do with this unit. And of course you can just put headphones in and listen to music. But also something I've never really done is listen to music on a motorcycle. It was just really just the wind and the engine sound. That was enough for me. So anyway, let's back it up 2 years ago. It was right before the Central Alps tour with Stefan, the end of season tour, the first one we did. There's a long video on that one up here, and he asked me as part of the preparation, do I have a communication unit, because you know he and all his buddies have one of these, and I said no, I don't, and I don't want one. So anyway, he took it as an opportunity to gift me one, so he sent me one as an early Christmas present. He said, it's like, here is one, and he got me a really nice Cardo unit. It was the Cardo Bolt Black, I think it was called. So at the time when that came out, you know, we're on the Edge now, which is the current version. But before that, that was the top of the line unit. It had the larger loudspeakers, so it's quite a nice fancy unit. And so now, of course, I had it as a gift, so I had to try it out. And before the Central Alps tour, Jochen and I had the Trans-Italia Marathon. Trans-Italia Marathon is that was a 4-day off-road event, first time for us to participate. So it was Jochen and me, and we were both joining the end of the season ride. So I asked him if he had a communication unit, and he had a Cardo as well. And you know, he bought one, and then he ended up putting it to the side because for pretty much exactly the same reasons as me. He didn't want that chatter, and he wanted to, you know, be focusing on this ride and all these things. So, but anyway, he got it out, and we started sort of experimenting with it during the Trans-Italia Marathon, and I started to sort of appreciate what a unit like this can do and what the benefits are. The obvious one, you can talk to each other, obviously, but there's a few especially when you're riding off-road, there was a few benefits that came throughout that ride. So the first day it was just Jochen and me, and it just kind of helped to be able to talk to each other. We would take sort of different leads. Sometimes he would ride in the front, sometimes it would be me. And, if you're just talking to each other, it's like, so how do you feel? If you're riding on gravel roads, just make sure that you take enough rest stops in between. So if someone gets tired, it's very easy to communicate that. It's like, listen, next 15 minutes, I'm good for a coffee stop. Or it's like, there's a cafe coming up in, 30 minutes. Are you good for another 30 minutes? So that really helped. It's also alerting the other rider of anything coming up sort of on the track. So you can alert someone saying, there is a big pothole, or, it's a branch sticking into the track. So that, give pre-warning really helps as well. Also helped me when I did some of the filming. So I attached a camera on Jochen's bike that would film me. And before that, I would just have to make sure that, trust that he would stay in his lane, and I could try to get very close to the camera to get a larger sort of framing of the shot. Now this time I could just talk to him. It's like, I'll be on your left, stay on your right. I'll be coming a bit closer now for the next, minute. And it made it a whole lot safer and a lot easier to communicate. So things that we would do with hand signs, and sometimes we would pass each other to just alert them. It's like, listen, I need a break. That stuff is so much easier to do. I mean, it's obvious, but so being in that moment, that was like, this is actually quite nice. Later in the Trans-Italien Marathon, we had more and more riders being patched into that. I think we had up to 8 or 9 at some point. Also Senna units, which you can patch in, the newer ones at least, to the Cardo Systems, just Bluetooth, but you can bring them into sort of the communication setup. And even that concern that we both had, that we like chit-chatting the entire time, be distracting. We did chit-chat a lot, not all the time, but sometimes, even in some of the more challenging off-road sections. It was by the time we hit day 3, we were so into the groove that it was not distracting at all. It was quite nice actually. We were like cracking jokes in the middle of some of the more challenging tracks, and we were all happy with it. And if you're not, you take that little scroll wheel here and just turn the volume down, and you don't have to listen to the guys. So it wasn't a big deal at all. But the plus in sort of sharing that moment with others, and for them to share it with you, that was a major benefit. And the safety benefit, especially riding in the larger group, was even bigger, because now if you picture these sort of gravel roads, if it's dry and dusty, the front person still sees a lot, but for everyone riding behind that person, the visibility gets down to a few meters. And so if you're riding at a certain pace, it really helps us that front person sort of alerts you of something coming up that you may not be able to see because you're riding sort of, behind in the pack. And that came in handy more than once. The Trans-Italien Marathon, the off-road tracks, there are public roads in most cases. So the public roads, there's other vehicles on there, not often, and especially because it's not often, it's quite important if someone's like, oh, there's a car coming, guys. Especially when you start to take, use the entire road, the left-hand side. I would find myself riding in the left-hand lane a lot just to make sure I don't get all that dust and dirt into my face from the person riding in front of me. So, it takes a bit longer to move over to the right. If there is a car coming, there's narrow roads, things like that really made a difference. Then we came to the Central Alps tour. So that's the tour on road, on tarmac tour, where I think almost everyone had one of these units. And same thing again, riding in the larger group. In this case, in addition to the things that we saw with the Trans-Italien Marathon, it was also good if the group would sort of spread out a bit more. Well, first of all, these things work quite well, with the mesh technology. So every one of these units here, if you don't know, they serve as a repeater. So it basically bounces the signal from one unit to the next, all the way to the guy riding in the back. So it gives you sort of a longer distance where the signal gets moved back and forth, and you can still talk to each other. Not as long as it says on the packaging, because for that you need line of sight and perfect conditions. In most cases you don't have those perfect conditions, especially riding in the mountains, but long enough that you can ride in a group setup and even let the group somewhat spread out a little bit. So if you had a few riders in front going a bit faster, you could still talk to them, and if you couldn't hear them anymore, that would be a good indication saying, okay, I can't hear them. That means the front guys, they need to slow down a little bit and let the group sort of come together again without even talking to each other. You'd hear it's like, okay, this guy is guys, not in the call anymore and not in the communication setup, and then you slow down a little bit. And that was really, really cool, because before that you weren't quite sure, and it's hard to see if you're riding in the front if everyone is still there, and it just kind of relaxes the whole thing. You don't have to ride as compact anymore as you would normally do if you're trying to keep a group together, but you can let it sort of go for a bit longer distance, and it gives everyone a bit more space to ride their own pace. It's a huge benefit in group riding. Anyway, those were the two first experiences. Of course, we had multiple other rides. The last one was October, West Alps. The video just came up here where we all had these units, and same thing, same benefits. Once you've used one of these in a group ride, it's hard to ride without one, at least for me. It's like I had a few times where I forgot to charge it and I was quite mad that I didn't charge it. It's easy to charge, just put it in my sort of tank bag and plug in a cable so I can charge it then and then use it for the rest of the day. Now I'll make sure it's charged because I think it's quite important. Anyway, with all that being said, now doing guided tours this year, quite a few of them, I wanted to sort of give that experience to the riders that are riding with me as well. So I approached Cardo and to see if they would partner with me, meaning, you know, they would get hopefully some feedback from the guys riding with these things, because this is what they make for group riding. And for me, is an opportunity to get a few units from them that I can sort of give to people riding with me free of charge, because I didn't want to charge extra money for it. And I also noticed that a lot of other tour operators, they don't advertise it, but at least it doesn't seem to be a big deal that they offer it. You would think that, you know, for guided tours and for group rides, this would be what everyone does. Apparently not, and that was confirmed to me by Cardo, that a lot of people just don't do it. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe there's too much hassle to set the helmets up and the units. I'm not sure. Maybe people know something I don't know yet. But for this year, I'll try that out. So if you're riding with me this year, if you're planning to ride with me this year or next year, there's a good chance I'll still have these units ready to go, and you can try them out and see if you like it or not. It's optional and it won't be at any cost to you. Anyway, that was just a short update. I'll be doing more videos on these units, how they work and stuff. There's plenty of reviews on Cardo units, and you know, one thing I don't want to do is just read down the spec list of what these units can do. I think I'd like to show you how they perform and how they work, but that's in upcoming videos. Anyway, guys, short update. If you got questions, comments, put them in the comment section. See you in the next video. Until then, ride safe, stay awesome.